Raised its profit forecast as its chicken business jumped year over year. You can see those shares up 1.7% in the pre-market. And Long Lake Management, a startup backed by General Catalyst, will buy the American Express travel platform, Global Business Travel, for $6 billion. We're back in 2 minutes with the Open and the Milken Conference. This is Bloomberg.
There was a party at Lake Arcadia. Edmond Police, along with Oklahoma Highway Patrol and Oklahoma City Police, responded to find multiple victims. I can confirm that we have transported 10 to area metro hospitals in various conditions. I do not have an update on those conditions at this time. However, there will be more victim numbers coming in, as some did take their own personal vehicles to the hospital. We are going to be investigating throughout the evening and on into tomorrow. Anyone with information can contact the Edmond Police Department. So that's really all the information we have at this time. We will, like I said, as soon as we can update with more information, we will get that out.
So just various injuries, no fatalities?
At this time, I don't have a condition on anyone as far as fatality or not. But yes, various conditions, and we have not received an update on those at this time. I'll go ahead and take some questions if you guys.
Are there any suspects?
So we're investigating. We do not have anyone in custody at this time.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there a threat to the public right now?
There's no reason to believe there's a threat to the public.
Okay. And then just what do the next hours look like for you guys here?
So our investigators are at the scene. It's very dark right now, so obviously as the sun comes up, we'll continue to investigate. They're just right now. It's just we're taking witness statements. We're kind of all over the metro speaking with victims and witnesses. So that's what we'll be doing in these next multiple hours.
Did you all get calls coming in saying there was shootings? Like, did various calls come in, or how did that?
We did. We received multiple calls on shootings, shots fired, multiple shots. So that was what led to the large, the Oklahoma Highway Patrol coming, the Oklahoma City Police Department, and Edmond, as well as Edmond Fire.
So how many agencies in total are here? We've seen a number of vehicles. Like, is this a multi-agency investigation, or?
It's an Edmond investigation. They were in the area, the Highway Patrol and the Oklahoma City Police, and so that's just something that they do to come in such a large event.
Can you give us an idea what kind of party this was? We know graduation is happening this weekend, going into next weekend. Was it teenagers, do we know, or was it adults, college? Can you give us an idea of what kind of party it was?
I don't have any information on that. I do know it was a large group of young people having a party.
By the lake?
Yes.
When you say young people, what age range would you say about, if you had to guess?
I'd hate to guess, but not young children, young adults. So it's a little too early. I don't want to put out information that wouldn't be correct.
Any message at all? I mean, this is just, obviously shootings can happen, but the magnitude of this, people at a party, lots of injuries. I spoke to a woman who was devastated because her cousin and her sister were shot, and she was just understandably, concerned what was going on. Any message at all for just the magnitude of what happened here?
This is obviously a very terrifying situation, and we understand the concern from the public and those involved, and we are working extremely hard to find these suspects and help these victims. Yeah, we really appreciate the public's patience with us and understanding, and we will get the information that's most important out as soon as we have it.
All right, so a very brief remark there coming in from the spokesperson for the city of Edmond. That is the police department there. Now, you heard she had a lot of questions herself, not really able to answer a lot, saying that at least 13 people were hospitalized. And when asked if there were any fatalities, any deaths there, she said she was not sure on conditions, essentially just saying that there are, quote unquote, various conditions. And she did not have an age on any of the victims, but said they are believed to be, quote unquote, young adults. We'll, of course, bring you any updated news conference we get coming in from the police department or other agencies that might be involved in that investigation. If you are just joining us here, it is 9:30 on the dot over on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and a lot of live events that will be kicking off here.
Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell. Thank you for joining. We are live on Rumble and YouTube, and also on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Please share the links and ask your social media to follow me. You can follow me on many modalities. You can follow me on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. You can also follow me on Patreon, Substack, X, TikTok, GETTR. Lots of ways to follow my work. Please help support this free content by purchasing the great products that I offer. You can also donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. On the homepage, you can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee. So according to the news from Iran, they're claiming that they hit a U.S. warship. Now, the Pentagon is stating that that is a false claim by the Iranians. Now, what happened last night in the energy market was natural gas and oil were moving upward. It's also important to mention that the Chinese markets and the Japanese markets were closed in the Asian session. Now, the markets are open now in New York. And right now, the S&P 500 is at 7,222 and VIX is at 17.68. Please refer to the episode that I published yesterday, which is episode 16, that will give you a little bit more detail on how I think the markets are going to be moving. But right now, we are going to have a resistance level for the S&P 500 at 7,240. And a support level at 7,000. And I don't think that the VIX is going to spike until the end of May. Perhaps the beginning of April, or the beginning of June, I'm sorry. The end of May, beginning of June is when I think VIX will spike. Now, the euro is trading at 117, so that's stable. The Japanese yen, because the BOJ is intervening in the currency markets, is at 157.03. And Bitcoin is trading below 80,000. It's trading at 79,365. So Bitcoin is slowly ticking up. And oil for WTI futures is trading at just below 102. Natural gas is trading at 2.837. Now, the question is, will oil be trading in a range? I think oil will be trading in a range between 94.80 to about 104. And right now, it's trading at 102. Last night, it went as high as 107. And natural gas is trading at 2.843. I think the range as we're getting into the summer season, natural gas should be falling. So fair value is probably closer to 2.5, 2.6 than to 3. But because of what's happening in the Middle East and energy markets are moving up, I think natural gas is a little elevated. I think there's more probability that natural gas will start to fall before oil starts to break below the 94 level continuously. So that's my little assessment of what's going on in the markets right now. Please help support the work by getting the great products that I offer, such as structural nanosilver lozenges and drops. These are perfect for the cold season, but also for the allergy season. We're in the allergy season right now. And if you're cleaning your house, the garage, or dusty areas, or working in the garden, you want to mitigate any sore throat that you may develop. So please go to my store, get the structural nanosilver lozenges. You can get it in orange splash, cherry flavor, honey and lemon, and also in Manuka honey. So get the lozenges and the drops. Once you have that throat irritation or you're exposed to a dusty area while you're cleaning or doing the spring cleaning, take them right away. It'll help to protect your oral pharynx and neutralize. Super important. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now the question is, what's going on in the world? So there was an event that took place over the weekend where 2 service members missing in Morocco. So let's listen into that through live now.
Exercise sounds like cliffs and all sorts of stuff. Morocco is a very interesting place. It's beautiful. So I don't want to speculate at all, obviously, but you know, there's also some bad folks in the region too. So let's just pray for their safe return. But I'm worried after 24 hours. You know, let's just pray that this turns out better than I'm thinking it is right now.
Explain to me how maybe, and I know everything's kind of different, but a search and rescue operation when you're talking about U.S. service members, and again, this appears to be during a hike, not part of the military exercise, but I have to imagine that everyone is going to come together and do what they can to try to find these people.
100%, Josh. The United States military, we don't go anywhere without a plan if somebody gets lost. This isn't, hey, these 2 folks are missing. What do we do? Like you and I talked about, geez, it seems like forever ago. It was about a month ago with the combat search and rescue folks going to get our Strike Eagle air crew that got shot down, or the A-10 that, the guy had to eject. There's a well-oiled machine and process that kicks into place. We start executing to it. But it also sounds like obviously the Moroccan authorities and some of the other militaries that were involved in this joint exercise are going to pitch in as well. But we, Josh, you and I have talked about this, no man or woman left behind. And we're going to pull out all the stops to try and find these folks.
And I do want to read some of the reaction that we're getting in right now, because again, there is a lot of reaction coming in. Scott saying, join me in praying for the safe return of our service members and for the protection of the brave search and rescue teams. Now, there are different missions that obviously go on worldwide. And can you explain to me kind of how those work? Because it sounds as though you would have maybe, I hate to say free time, but you would have some time there to go out and hike.
Well, Josh, that's actually the good deal, right? You know, I joined the Navy and see the world. That's a great deal, right? In the United States military, you get to travel the world. I've been all over the world and countries, and it's a good deal. So this is a good thing. You know, you get some R&R, some rest and recreation and relaxation, or 3 R's that would be. So this is good that our service members are allowed to see foreign countries and stuff like that. But you know, before you leave, kind of safe area or friendly area, Josh, you get a pretty thorough threat brief, even in the most friendly country. I'm not going to name names, but you know, even in our some of our NATO allied countries in Europe, before you leave a U.S. base, you are given a full threat briefing. Here's friendlies, here's bad folks, here's local folks who don't like us or wish us harm. So even though it's a good deal to be able to go see the world, not everybody digs our being there. So you definitely have to keep your eye on a swivel anywhere in the world in today's climate, which is, of course, sad.
And Representative Andy Biggs there saying, I'm praying for the safe return of these 2 U.S. service members who have gone missing overseas. May God return them to their loved ones very soon. Now, going back to what I was asking you a bit earlier, I have to imagine not only do the search and rescue operations continue, but I also have to imagine that U.S. service members are not going to give up. They're going to keep looking. It's not a quick, well, we're searching the area, didn't find them, let's go. I have to imagine that they're going to stay out there and keep looking for their brothers or sisters in this case.
100%, Josh. No man, no woman left behind actually means something. We will not leave or conclude this mission until we find these folks, period. That's just not an option. Failure is not an option to find these folks. Hopefully it is a rescue operation, and then God forbid, Josh, again, I am not speculating, but it moves from rescue operation into potentially recovery, but we're not even close to being there. There is a series of timelines in the United States military that slide people in and out of different statuses, but we're still in the rescue phase, Josh, as you're seeing some of the elected representatives pointing out. So let's all, I absolutely believe in the power of prayer. So I am with these souls. They're going to be returned home safe, I pray, to their family and friends and their loved ones.
And what are you watching for here as we essentially watch this play out? Of course, hopefully the safe return of these 2 U.S. service members, but anything else that you're watching for, any questions that you maybe have?
No, Josh, you're not going to, this isn't like a, missing kid here in the United States. The military's going to be a little quiet. We're going to go out because, again, 100% speculation. If it is potential bad guys, we don't want to give them any tip or any intel as to what we're doing. We want to find these folks. We're going to have heads down, and you might hear an update soon. So to be honest with you, no news is potentially good news, right? So let the search and rescue forces do their job, and hopefully we get a good result. But you're not going to see like a every couple hour briefing from the local sheriff type of thing from the United States military. The commanding officer of whoever these 2 personnel are, that guy or gal is walking around those cliffs trying to find him or herself. So quiet, professional, and we'll get a result, and hopefully it's a good one.
And my last question here before I let you go, wanted to ask a little bit about the fact that this is AFRICOM. So we're not talking about U.S. Central Command. We're not talking about a location there in the U.S. And you talked a little bit about Morocco, some other locations, briefings given, and things of that nature. How does a search and rescue operation differ when you are talking about another location, another country? You're not talking about the U.S. or anything like that. How does that kind of change things?
Yeah. Well, the combatant commander, whether it's AFRICOM, CENTCOM, NORCOM, any of those combatant commanders, they have a dedicated search and rescue. Obviously up in the mountains in Canada or North America is going to be different search and rescue efforts from down in Morocco. So each combatant commander is going to have their own set of search and rescue procedures or missing person procedures. I was a Navy guy. We had man overboard drills, right? It was pretty incredible in the Navy, Josh, and they would do drills every once in a while. The commanding officer of the ship would go grab a sailor, 19-year-old kid, and hide him in his stateroom or her stateroom, give him cookies and stuff like that. Like, hey, hide here for half an hour. And the entire ship, thousands, potentially 5,000, 6,000, we would have to muster in a certain amount of time to try and find this lost individual. It's a very thorough process. And thank God, because the United States military, our country, we treasure human life. And obviously, this is a big priority. So I'm praying for a good outcome here.
And one more question I wanted to ask you about, because essentially you and I have talked a lot about different air-related incidents, things of that nature that have happened. And we actually heard about an incident yesterday. I'm sure you've heard about it as well, over at Newark, all related to a situation with a plane that essentially struck a light pole as it was landing. It was a flight that was apparently coming in from Venice, I believe. What I want to do is pop this up on your screen right here. This is a post from Rapid Response 47, which is, of course, from the Trump administration. We actually heard from Secretary of Transportation, that was Sean Duffy, a bit earlier, and he said, quote, "This is unacceptable. We have really well-trained pilots. This should never happen in America. An incident like this, we study and we learn from, we take action on. That's why America is the safest place to fly." What's your kind of assessment of a plane there actually hitting a light pole? I have to imagine that's fairly a rare occurrence.
Josh, man, let me lead with my standard disclaimers. I wasn't in the cockpit. There might have been an emergency in close. They're dealing with something in the cockpit. Now that I have all of those out of the way, if this was a, quote, normal approach and landing, didn't look like the weather was bad, looked like nice weather, it is absolutely unacceptable to be that low, Josh. Again, one more time, I'm going to disclaim, if there was an emergency at the last second and they're, we're going to find that out pretty quick. Secretary Duffy most likely already knows that. Maybe that's why he gave a little poke. But Josh, if they're flying if they were flying an instrument approach, even though the weather was nice, you could fly an instrument approach. Even if they weren't, Josh, on the left side of the runway, there's a precision approach path indicator light system. I haven't flown into New York in a long time, but it doesn't matter. There is a set of lights, and we're pilots. I'm a political science major from South Jersey. We need basic caveman and cavewoman type of thinking. If all 4 lights are red, you're dead, right? If the other ones, we call it red over white, pilot's delight. Like if there's white and red lights staring at you, you're on the glide slope. If they're all red, Josh, you're dead. Red, you're dead. Again, pilots need basic stuff. They saw screaming red lights on the left side of that runway. And if they were shooting the approach, they were clearly under the approach path. So I don't know. Obviously, we don't know who was flying. Did the captain try and take control? What's going on? This one's going to be interesting, Josh. But I saw the video like you did. Thank God that guy didn't get hurt. But man, no. When they design the runways, Josh, and the approach order, they assume that everybody's on glide path. Even if somebody's really low, are we still safe? Yeah. They were in the weeds, Josh. And that, to the Secretary's point, just absolutely unacceptable unless there was an emergency last second and they were dealing with something. So I'm going to give them a little grace at this point and wait for the investigation. But man, when I saw that, I'm like, okay, somebody screwed up.
And I'm just glad there were no.
All right, we're going to transition over to the Iranian state media saying that missiles hit U.S. warship. This clip is from MS Now. But before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the supplements that I have to help support your health and wellness. They're very high quality. These are supplements that I take every day to slow down the aging process. And by purchasing the products, you're helping the show. I do all this for free. So please go to my store and help support the work that I do. C60. C60 is a very strong, very potent antioxidant. It's one of the major pillars of my anti-aging protocol. Take a teaspoon a day every day, preferably on an empty stomach in the morning. I've been taking C60 for over 10 years. Again, take a teaspoon a day, and you can take it in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, or in avocado oil. Now, C60 needs to be in a lipid or an oil for proper absorption. For ones that are taking C60 in a powder form, that's not the right way to do it. You need it to have it suspended in a lipid to be able to absorb it. And when your body is absorbing C60, what's happening is it's in the cells, it's soaking up the free radicals and boosting up your mitochondria, the health of the mitochondria. And by doing that, you're increasing your ATP levels, you're increasing your energy levels, and you're reducing inflammation, you're reducing stress in the cells, so your tissues perform better. But by soaking up free radicals at the vascular level, you're also reducing plaque formation because you're reducing the concentration of oxidized LDL. This is the reason why lowering your LDL levels and soaking up free radicals is really important to help with your cardiovascular health. In addition, by bringing down inflammation, soaking up free radicals at the neuron level, your brain will perform better. You'll have better positive neuroplasticity. You'll have better connection between neurons. The dendritic connections will improve. You'll be thinking faster and you'll have better memory. And reducing the free radicals in your body and bringing down that stress is also going to help to elevate the health of your immune system and your endocrine system. And when you have better blood flow because you have better cardiovascular fitness, you're going to have better perfusion in your organ systems and also better brain function. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the C60. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. Again, you can get it in MCT coconut oil, avocado oil, or extra virgin olive oil. But take a teaspoon a day every day. And it's a major pillar of my anti-aging protocol. And what's the anti-aging protocol? It's really simple. Foundation, the multivitamin, and probiotic. The first pillar, max 35 or cleanse to boost up the immune system. C60, bringing down free radicals. That's the second pillar. The third pillar, turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans to boost up your immune system and help with your cardiovascular system. And Boomer Boost, rev up your cellular metabolism. And when you do that, you're targeting all the major features of aging. And you are consistent in taking the protocol with proper diet and exercise, proper sleep, learning new things, stretching and balancing exercises, positive thinking. When you do all this in a holistic approach, you will slow down the methylation of your genes. And when you do that, that's the key to slowing down aging, because aging is the methylation of your genes. So you want to target all those pressure points that speeds up the methylation of your genes. You want to slow that down. You want to slow that methylation down so you maintain your youthful gene expression. It's really simple, but you have to be consistent. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Use discount 5, all caps discount 5. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
About what war, peace, ceasefires, a way forward. Right now, Iranian state media is saying that it has struck two missiles hit a U.S. Navy vessel near Jask Island after it ignored warnings from the Revolutionary Guard to halt. Again, this is Iranian state media. They have, of course, been lying since 1979. That said, in this war, often what they've reported has ended up being confirmed by Western news sources. So if in fact that is the case, that U.S. Navy ships have been hit after ignoring warnings, obviously we've reached a new level of escalation, David.
So obviously we have to be careful with this first report, but
yep,
we're sure that there is a very precarious situation in the Gulf now, in which the U.S. is announcing a desire to help facilitate transit through the Strait of Hormuz, but isn't declaring an actual escort mission. And this morning, we didn't talk much about it, but an Iranian commander said early this morning that U.S. ships would be fired upon if they challenged the Gulf, challenged the Iranian presence. So we may be seeing a follow-up. I'm thinking, as you are, as I'm sure all of our viewers are, what does President Trump do in response to this? When somebody shoots missiles at your ship, you then are almost obligated to take action. And so what was a precarious situation before now becomes even more so. I'm sure that the Pakistani mediators who've been active now for several weeks are on the phone right now. If this is a Revolutionary Guard vessel outside the normal Iranian chain of command, that's one thing. If it reflects the decision by the leadership in Tehran, that's another. So much we don't know right now, but I must say, you can just see the black smoke rising from the Gulf and worry that the next stage could be another downturn.
Yeah, David, let's spend another minute on this. We should, of course, reiterate it's from Iranian state media. It's not been independently verified. I've texted a few people in the Trump administration, no word yet. I mean, news just broke a few moments ago that this alleged event occurred. But if it is true, it is a marked escalation. That this.
Okay. Supposedly, CENTCOM just stated no U.S. Navy ships struck. Now, with that, let's pivot over to BBC and their coverage of what U.S. CENTCOM said.
I finally realized why all the big companies use Navan to manage their business travel. With Navan, company travel basically...
Hello, I'm Lucy Hawkins. Welcome to BBC News Now. Iran says U.S. forces will... to the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian threat followed President Trump's message on social media that the American military would help guide ships through this vital waterway. An estimated 20,000 seafarers on 2,000 ships have been stuck in the strait since the US-Iran war began back in February. We've been hearing from President Trump on Truth Social. He has written, "For the good of Iran, the Middle East, and the United States, we have told these countries that we will guide their ships safely out of these restricted waterways so that they can freely and ably get on with their business." He added, "If in any way this humanitarian process is interfered with, that interference will unfortunately have to be dealt with forcefully." We had a very quick response from Iran. This statement was released. "We warn that any foreign armed forces, especially the aggressive US military, if they intend to approach or enter the Strait of Hormuz, will be targeted and attacked." And in the last hour, reports in Iran state media that 2 missiles were fired at a US warship intending to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. There has been no independent verification of this story. Very unclear right now what has actually happened. But we hope to shed some light on that because to try and make sense of it all is Baran Abbasi from BBC Persian, who is with me now. State media, not that reliable, but what exactly do we know and what is being said about what's just happened in the Strait of Hormuz?
So even the state media are not telling us the same account of what's happened. The state TV is saying that a US warship had been turned away from the Strait of Hormuz, but was prevented from entering the Strait of Hormuz after warning shots were fired by Iranian forces. But Fars news agency that is affiliated to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, that has been running the war effort, is saying that a warship had entered the strait and 2 missiles had been fired at it after it ignored warnings, and the missiles had hit the warship and it was forced to turn back and leave the strait. So we have 2 different accounts. And as you said, the state media are not very reliable. The Fars news agency had made false claims before about what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. It had claimed that U.S. strike carrier group USS Abraham Lincoln had been drowned several times during the war before the ceasefire. So it's not very reliable, but we could say maybe some incident happened in the Strait of Hormuz. Some warning shots were fired, but it's very unclear. And I need to say that the U.S. website Axios has also talked to a...
So I've got a really important clarification. We have just had some social media comment from CENTCOM, who says no U.S. Navy ships have been struck. So as far as the Americans are concerned, they've obviously seen this claim from Iranian state media, and U.S. Central Command have now released this. No U.S. Navy ships have been struck. U.S. forces are supporting Project Freedom, which Baron will talk about in a moment, and enforcing the naval blockade on Iranian ports. So we're getting 2 very different versions of what has happened in the Strait of Hormuz. Can I ask you a question about who could have fired these missiles? Because President Trump often says, you know, the Iranian Navy is at the bottom of the sea. There is no Iranian Navy. Would this have then been, if it's happened, IRGC forces?
Yes, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are in charge at the moment, not just the war effort, but also in charge of the running of the country. And when missiles are fired, they are by the IRGC naval forces. They might have been degraded massively, but they still exist, and they have shown that they are still capable of striking ships that go through the Strait of Hormuz. They have issued warnings saying that any ships...
I think what it is that the infighting that's happening in Iran, to pacify the supporters, they need to do propaganda and state that they fired and hit a U.S. warship, since Trump stated earlier that he's going to help with escorting tankers out of the region. So for them to show that they're strong, that the Iranians are strong, they hit a U.S. warship. It's all propaganda. That's all what they're doing is they're very weak, but because they are fractured and they have these 31 different groups and they're not coordinated, it's going to be hard to de-escalate this situation, because who do you really negotiate with? Because it doesn't look like there's any central command for Iran.
Want to go through the strait have to ask permission from the IRGC forces, have to go through a specific route that they have announced today, designated by the IRGC, if they want to be safe. Otherwise, if they break this pattern, then they will be fired upon.
What do we know about what is happening in the strait in terms of how unsafe it actually is? How many mines are in there? What seafarers face if they try to navigate through here?
So the Iranian forces have said that they have planted mines in the strait. They have not said how many, but they've said that if they go through the route that is designated by them, they will be safe. The ships will be safe. Iran is blockading the strait by just threatening to strike ships. It doesn't have to actually do that, but by threatening them, it prevents ships from going through the strait. On the other hand, the U.S. has blockaded Iran's ports. That has put a lot of pressure on Iranians economically, because they cannot be exporting their oil, and also empty tankers cannot come in to...
Breaking news, U.S. March factory orders, transportation went up. U.S. final March non-defense capital goods orders, air rises. Durable goods, transportation rise 0.9 month over month. Estimate was 0.9. All right, U.S. factory orders rise 1.5 month over month. Estimate was 0.6. So March orders seem to be pretty good.
To store the oil that is being produced by Iran.
Baron, I want to ask you more in a moment about what's happening diplomatically, but let's just look at this process of guiding ships through the Strait of Hormuz, how it could possibly work in practice, because that seems incredibly unclear at the moment. Kevin Eyre is a retired U.S. Navy captain who commanded 3 warship cruisers, and he told us more about how the U.S. might guide these stranded ships out of the Strait of Hormuz.
CENTCOM, the combat commander of the area, spoke of guided missile destroyers and aircraft, but no one has said emphatically or specifically that U.S. Navy units will actively escort neutral ships out of the strait. It's unclear whether the intention is to guide and coordinate, or to actually go in and do a classic convoy situation. The difference between these two things is the difference between night and day. The active escort is the most dangerous and fraught solution. It means sending U.S. warships into the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran still has a kind of control over. And so, depending upon what Iran selects to do, should U.S. Navy warships move into that area, all depends on that. Because if they have a number of anti-ship ballistic missiles remaining, that's open source reporting, they might have as many as 1,000 anti-ship drones, and they also have hundreds of fast patrol boats which can be armed with rockets. Now, these Arleigh Burke-class destroyers are the most sophisticated warships ever created in the world. They can do it, but it comes at significant risk.
And where are we at with diplomacy right now? Well, Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson has told state television that Tehran has submitted a 14-point proposal focused on ending the war. He said Washington had responded through a message passed via Pakistani mediators. Talks between Iran and the US have stalled over how to end the 2-month conflict. The spokesperson said the US needs to scale back its demands on the Islamic Republic. A key sticking point, as we've been talking about, is Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz. Since US and Israeli strikes on February the 28th, major flows of oil, gas, and fertilizer have been disrupted, while Washington has also imposed a blockade on Iranian ports. And Baron, surely another key sticking point as well is the nuclear program. Any sign that Iran might put that back on the table? Because so far they've said, no, we want it to remain separate for the moment.
From what we're hearing from unconfirmed reports, officially they say that the enrichment issue has to be negotiated about after the war is ended. They want guarantees. They want the formation of an international body that would guarantee that the war would not happen again. 30 days during which both sides gradually open the Strait of Hormuz, and the US would gradually lift Iran's blockade of ports. And then after that, if this is settled, then Iran would talk about its nuclear issue. The problem is that there is no sign that Iran would agree to end enrichment. And that is why the United States has been demanding, as well as the Strait of Hormuz. Iran wants to keep control of the Strait of Hormuz. It says that it is providing security to ships that are going through the strait, and therefore it is entitled to tolls from ships that are going through. So this is again something that is unlikely that to be accepted by the United States. Both sides seem to be sticking to maximalist demands. The US is also saying that it will not lift the blockade of Iran's ports as long as a deal is not reached. So it's very unlikely, if both sides do not make huge compromises, it's unlikely that they will come to an agreement. And Iran seems to think that it has the upper hand. Yesterday, the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, issued a statement saying that Donald Trump is stuck between a bad deal or a return to an impossible war. So it seems that by keeping control of the Strait of Hormuz and holding the world's economy hostage, it believes that it is holding the cause at the moment, and it's not willing to compromise.
Baron, thank you. Another key part of the picture, of course, is what is happening in Lebanon, with Iran also always saying that that ceasefire there needs to hold. And we now know that the Israeli military today again has issued an urgent evacuation warning to residents of 11 towns and villages in the south of the country. It is continuing its strikes against Hezbollah. Israeli strikes killed at least 7 people in southern Lebanon on Saturday. This is despite this nominal ceasefire agreement that is in place at the moment, but it is repeatedly being broken. Hezbollah has also continued its drone and rocket attacks on Israeli troops in Lebanon and northern Israel.
You deserve the best. At Harbor Freight, you can afford it.
All right, we're going to pivot over to Blaze TV. It looks like Glenn Beck was talking about Mamdani's plan for New York City. But before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotics and stack them with the multivitamin that I have on my store. The probiotics on my store, you can get it in the powdered form or in the veggie cap form. Now, a good probiotic is really important to help to improve your gut biome, to allow you to absorb your nutrients, bring down inflammation at the gut level, improve your immune system, improve the mucosal layer, reduce leaky gut syndrome. And when you improve your gut biome, not only are you able to absorb your nutrients better, but you're also reducing leaky gut syndrome. So you're going to reduce the chances of developing new allergies. Proper gut health does protect you from developing allergies. It's not the only way, but it's a major way. Now, also, by taking a good probiotic, you're going to be able to sleep better. A good gut biome actually produces compounds that will allow you to sleep better. And when you sleep better, you're detoxifying your central nervous system, you're consolidating memory, and you'll be well rested. And when you do that, you're actually slowing down the aging process of your brain. So a good gut biome is actually helping with brain function. In addition, your metabolism will be revved up. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. get the veggie cap version or the powdered version probiotics that are on my store and stack them with the multivitamin that I take, that I have on my store and that I take. These are products that I use to slow down the aging process. So if you just follow what I'm doing, you're going to be able to get similar benefits. In addition, not enough people are taking magnesium. Magnesium is super important for brain function. Now, magnesium and zinc will boost up your immune system, but also help with that brain function. Vitamin C and magnesium helps with skin health, help with the brain function and your immune system. You can stack them together for max benefit. In addition, taking a good probiotic is going to help with your skin. So there's synergistic benefits between taking vitamin C and magnesium and the probiotic. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer. They're very high quality. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. You can use that discount as many times as you want. In addition, if you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. It's really simple. If you just take the supplements that I'm taking, you're going to slow down the aging process by slowing down the methylation of your genes and improving your epigenetics to keep a youthful gene expression. It's that simple. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. You don't have to spend $2 million like Brian Johnson, the tech bro billionaire. You just have to do some simple things and be consistent with them, and you'll have a better, healthier life. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, let's listen into Glenn Beck.
The gold days of Grubhub Plus are upon us, but with great deals come gold diggers.
That's a big bag, Gary.
We were just sitting here talking about...
Now, before we listen to this relatively short clip, my take on Mamdani, since I live in New York, is that this is a ushering in of communism and an erosion of the Enlightenment. Our constitutional republic's foundation is based on the philosophy of John Locke and the Enlightenment. Life, liberty, and property rights. And we've built on top of that foundation our constitutional republic. And there are pillars within our society that are really important to maintain: God, country, and family. And if you erode those pillars, you will no longer have a country. Now, with that, I take the stance that Mamdani is a communist, ushering in the destruction of capitalism. He's like Napoleon the pig on Animal Farm.
New York City and Mamdani, and how this happened.
Yeah.
Why, who voted for him? How did this happen?
I know. I mean, you're talking about your Ellis Island event, and I'm like, yeah, it's so true, so relevant. Who voted for him? Yeah, I was just saying over the break, it's third world immigrants and yuppies, millennial yuppies who didn't get the life that they were promised when they took out 6 figures of debt to go to university, and they never got their high-paying job, or at least a lifestyle that they thought would correspond with that job in corporate. They never got their marriage. They never got their 2 kids. They never got their car, and they're really resentful. And they think that because they didn't get that stuff, that they had to tear apart Park Avenue and tear apart Fifth Avenue because those people have it.
What good does that do you?
Good question. It's like catharsis.
I mean, I just don't understand. First of all, who promised you anything? That's a university lying to you. Maybe it's your parents actually believing, but that's not the way it was, except for their generation. One generation had that. One. And all of a sudden, that's just the way it is. It's not.
Well, exactly. That's it. It's, I do have sympathy for the fact that it's hard. It is hard.
It is hard.
And I understand, because I also had this transition, I guess, out of disillusionment, or into disillusionment, where, I was born in the 90s, early 90s, and, whatever, my sisters were brought up in the 80s, and you could have like single income and houses were like totally affordable. You buy a house and then you have your children, and, schools are so super affordable and accessible. The country's really safe. You trust your community. You can go outside alone at 7 years old and nobody is worried about you. And there's like a certain like lifestyle, a certain culture that you grow up in, and you just assume that it's going to be the same for you. And then as it turns out, you come up after the financial crash, you come up after mass migration, you come up after 9/11 and COVID, exactly. And the world, tech, the world isn't the same. There's been these obviously massive changes in the culture and in society from the time that our parents were bringing us up to the time that we're coming up. And you can do one of two things once you realize that. You can insist that you don't realize it, and then become angrier and angrier and angrier as you exert effort into nothingness, or you can adapt.
First, let me tell you about real estate agents I trust. Let me tell you a little secret about real estate. The housing market doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't care that you think your house is worth a certain number because you love the kitchen. It doesn't care that you saw the house 3 streets over selling for something crazy. Buy a house in this market. realestateagentsitrust.com.
And I think that the Mamdani voters are the former. And the latter are the people who want to hustle.
See, that is the difference in America. It has always been hustle.
It's hard. It's hard. Okay.
Really hard. When people came over here, the ones who got disillusioned were the ones who thought that the streets were paved in gold. They weren't. It's
100%.
really hard. I just saw the Broadway show Ragtime this week. Have you seen it?
No.
It's the best.
I saw the actual director of that Ragtime musical and the individual that actually runs the Lincoln Center, because it's being played at the Lincoln Center. They had a special event for Harvard Club members in New York. And so we watched her presentation about the history of the Lincoln Center, how it's improving, how it's moving into a new era, and the making of Ragtime for the Lincoln Center. So it's an interesting behind the scenes look at what was going on. Now, I personally feel that as a New Yorker, I don't spend time in musicals or looking at these Broadway shows or off-Broadway shows. That seems to be a very kind of almost touristy type thing to do. And it's shocking that in the data is showing that the cost to actually do a production now compared to 10 years ago is double the cost. So to do a musical or do a Broadway show, it's double the they're talking about the cost of living for people. Everything is elevated now. Now the storyline of Ragtime is these different families experiencing their ups and downs in the American dream. So I can understand that maybe people would like to see and a lot of people like the show. It's done well. But I personally think that you can just walk down any street in New York and literally see Ragtime playing out in real life. So you really don't need to pay $250 a ticket to see something that you can literally witness down Fifth Avenue or down, 34th Street.
It's the best revival.
Oh, great.
It's really good. But it tells a story of an immigrant that is coming in. One of the sub-stories is this immigrant comes in and he comes from Latvia. and he's telling his child on the ship coming over, his streets are paved with gold and we're going to make it. And then he gets here and he realizes how hard it is. And he starts to turn on capitalism and America. And then he finds the one thing that he can do that nobody else can do, and it hits for him. You know what I mean? And that's the thing.
Yeah, 100%.
You can't just.
But here's the problem, and I'm all about meritocracy. I'm all about people, working hard and moving forward. But the problem is that there are too many people chasing the same job, and they may be qualified. There are not enough jobs being created. And on top of it, you add in AI, where there's going to be less jobs, most likely. So there's going to be a demand destruction for jobs, but also a demand destruction in consumer consumption. So the aggregate demand is going to go down, I think. Maybe some miracle happens with this whole AI revolution and, there's tons of jobs being created, but I don't see that happening. I think it's actually deflationary, what we're going to be seeing. And that sounds bad. If you own property, deflationary environment actually means that your property values go down in price. So if you've paid it in full, then you don't have as much of a hit. But if you have a loan on your property, some sort of mortgage, you may go underwater with it, where the mortgage is higher than the actual value of the home. And that happened during the Lehman crisis. So to get to a normal level that we remember in the 80s and the early 90s, where people could actually get a decent job and start their life, we actually have to go through a deflationary cycle. Or there is a massive job boom because of AI. I doubt that there's going to be a massive job boom in AI. Just look around. How many things do you need? Most of the stuff that you purchase, you don't even need. So there's a lot of unnecessariness that's taking place in the economy. And that's going to get weeded out. That's going to get purged. And so you're going to actually see, I think, more people being angry about the system because there's not going to be that many jobs available. Why hire someone that's young, that's inexperienced, when you can hire someone that's with a decent level of experience and is older? I mean, what value does someone coming out of college give to the workforce today? I honestly can't tell you. They're not experienced in the field. They may work for less as an entry-level position to do pay-on jobs. But the thing is, AI can do that now for much less. So where are these people that are coming out of college going to do? Where are they going to go? I think it's a big question. And right now, youth unemployment is huge. I mean, it's over 10%. Overall unemployment is like 4.3, 4.4%. But out of college, it's high. So it's going to be a problem. It's going to continue. It reminds me of what the 70s were. Before the computer age, before the digitization of corporate, before the personal computer, before the game development. All right? What was happening? Energy prices were going up. College grads were having a problem getting into a job. Now, college was not that expensive. Home prices weren't that expensive. Cars weren't that expensive. But there were famous magazine covers where you have this college grad dressed in his regalia, pumping a gas into his car, right? And, you know, it was showing the signs that they couldn't get a job other than working at the gas station. Now, during this time period, self-service wasn't very common. It was more full service gas stations. Now everything's self-service. In most states, I think New Jersey still, I don't think New Jersey allows for self-service. But the thing is, but the point that I'm making here is that with this AI technology, we may actually be moving back to the 70s in the pre-digitization economy. What the digitization of economy gave us in the late 70s, and more so in the 80s and 90s, was more job opportunity. And I think that this full circle is starting to complete. And now we're going back to the 70s, pre-digitization. Because the AI can do it, and you don't need as many workers. The same problem. There were too many people going through college and not enough jobs available until the computerization took place. But if that computerization is hypercharged with AI and you no longer need to hire people, then it's like very similar to an environment where there's no computerization to allow for humans to be employed. So I think that we're coming full circle here, and that some of the dynamics of stagflation in the 70s is starting to come back, and it's a concern. But maybe things will get better. But I suspect that there's going to be a mezzanine period where it's going to be similar to the 70s. And then all of a sudden, the green shoots will come out, maybe 5, 6, 7 years later. And then an economy starts to grow out of this deflationary cycle. Maybe the deflationary cycle will last longer than 5 years. But a deflationary cycle lasting even 2 years is scary. The longer it lasts, the scarier it is. Because now you're really questioning the viability of modern capitalism. And if you couple that with losing a war in Asia against the Chinese, then you'll have a lot of people in the United States and in Western countries trying to shed a constitutional republic and move towards a one-party system that will lead to communism. And that's what's at stake here. And this is the reason why it's so important that we win in the Pacific. We destroy China if they decide to try to take the first island chains. We cannot allow them to win, even though our munition manufacturing capability is drastically diminished. Many people don't even know this. I just learned it yesterday, and I did my previous video 16, episode 16, on munitions and how much we're expending in the Iranian war. Well, we can only make 79 Tomahawk missiles a year with current manufacturing capability. 79. Now think about that for a second. A destroyer or a frigate can have about anywhere from 90 to 98 Tomahawk missiles in their bay. So in one night or in 2 nights of activity, a frigate or a destroyer could use its whole battery of Tomahawk missiles. And it would take more than a year to actually create new ones. That is totally unacceptable. We do not have the manufacturing capability to have a sustained war in the Pacific. So if China decides to make more munitions, more missiles before stockpile, they'll win the Pacific because they'll have, it's all a numbers game. They'll have more munitions. And that's really scary. That's really, really scary in terms of our hegemonic power and in terms of our geopolitical stance in the world and what happens domestically. You already have the seeds of Mamdani in New York City trying to destroy capitalism. So it's all related. It's all related. The overuse of AI, perhaps making us go back to a stagflationary economy like in the 70s, pre-digitalization. Because if you're not benefiting in terms of jobs, it's as if there is no digitization, just like the 70s. It becomes irrelevant. Now, you also have many people that are aligned ideologically to communism. So you have the stagflation that takes place, and we lose potentially the war in the Asian theater. And now you can see the rise of this democratic socialism, pushing communistic solutions. And on the surface, it seems like great. You know, universal basic income sounds so great. How does that work where the actual country is productive and doesn't prevent inflation? How does just giving free money away prevent inflation? It doesn't. It creates inflation. So this universal basic income is not a very productive solution to this. So it's a scary time that people are going in, especially the youth, where they can't find good jobs. But again, you know, maybe people just need to move out of the city. In the urban environments, this idea of living in an urban environment is probably just wrong. Maybe people need to move back into the rural and the suburb environment. Now, with the suburbs, it's kind of in between rural and urban. And there's two types of suburbs. Suburbs that are closer to the rural or suburbs that are closer to the urban. I think probably the sweet spot is suburbia that's closer to rural. But cost of living will go down, but amenities of the urban life will be diminished. But this is all related. AI, the encroachment of the CCP on the First Island chains in the Asian theater, mayors that are Democrat socialists popping up in the United States. This almost like seems like there's a caliphate that's starting to take hold in the United States, especially in Michigan. It's happening in London, and it looks like it's happening in New York. So it's a big problem.
Gate here, you can't.
Right.
It's
Well, that's it. I mean, you can, and you're not going to live a glamorous life, and you're going to, you know, kind of scrape by, and you get what you put in, you know, but that's what's great about America is that it abides by the laws of physics. You get what you put in.
Yeah. It's, I never understood the Frank Sinatra song, New York, New York, where he says, you know, you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. I never understood it until I started doing television here.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized there were 1,000 people, literally 1,000 people right behind me that would stab me to death.
100%.
Stab me to death for that job.
100%.
And it's that, when you understand that, oh man, this is all competitive.
Yeah.
This is, you are either all in or you're not going to last a day.
Exactly.
That's New York.
Yes, 100%. That's right. And listen, like, it's not for everyone. And like maybe that's part of the Mamdani voter, you know, profile too, is that they're not really cut out for it and they just want to be
That's
here
a good
because
point.
the restaurants are like really good.
Yeah, exactly. New York isn't for everybody. And most of the people that are moving to New York don't deserve to be here. And then so when they start whining that it's not working for them, they're not just cut out for it. And when you have a socialist mayor or a communist mayor trying to take the property rights of individuals, what's going to happen is the producers are going to leave, and that's what's happening. Many people are leaving and going to Texas or Florida or other places in the country. And so what happened in New York during the 70s? It was terrible. So again, there's this almost like we're coming back to the 70s because of technology, because of the stagflation that's taking place in the economy, the over-indebtedness. We were heavily in debt in the 70s because of the Vietnam War. So there's this economic variables that are very similar. There's a similarity to it. And I don't know what the answer is. Hopefully there'll be green shoots that pop up. What got us out of the stagflation of the 70s was the computerization with people getting jobs because of the computerization of corporate. But when you have the digitization or the computerization or the AI revolution not employing people, that is a problem. Because the very thing that got us out of stagflation, the computerization of corporate, has led us to AI, and AI, if managed improperly, could tank the economy and get us back into a stagflation period. And then then how do you get out of it? How do you get out of that? Through legislation to regulate AI usage? I don't know. I mean, that doesn't seem like a very good idea in terms of long-term solution. But how do you fit if AI produces stagflation over a 10-year period with high unemployment or above normal unemployment rate, and it's not employing new grads, the new generation? What do you do to get out of that? Oh, the Federal Reserve just lower rates? Well, there's no transmission mechanism because the corporations are saying we don't need the people. Well, we'll just give them more money on the dole. Well, that's just unproductive spending that's been financed. So you dig a further debt. So how do you get out of it? How do you get out of an AI-generated stagflation? No one has the answer to this. It's a big problem. And so the probability of socialism and the rise of the Democratic Socialist Party, the probability of it becoming mainstream is higher. Now, we're not there yet, but we're approaching it. It could happen in 2030. It could happen, after a major recession. It's surprising that we haven't had a major recession in a while. But AI, if it does create stagflation, how do you get out of it? Oh, you just build all these businesses that are running AI? Not everybody has the chops to make a business. The far majority of the population can't do it. So what does the population do? How do you get out of a stagflation, AI-driven economy? I don't think any economist or any prognosticator that's from the tech world really has a good answer. And universal basic income isn't going to work because it's inflationary. So it'll exacerbate the stagflation.
Right. But it's not really for you. And that's okay too. But again, like the reaction to that is probably to find like a city that's a little more like, you know, slower pace. It's a little less like intense, perhaps a little less Machiavellian, and, you know, go live there. Don't try to burn the city down to size that fits you.
So tell me what happens. What happens here? You know, my son was just at the new JP Morgan Chase building, which is you want to talk incredible. He told me about it. We were invited to go see it, and I said, "Son, you go and tell me about it." He went. He said, have you been in there yet?"
No, I haven't. I walk past it all the time. I have a client nearby.
So inside the building, there is a flagpole, a giant flagpole with an American flag in the center of the building that actually flutters sideways in the wind. Okay, they've created this whole thing to where it's constantly waving in the flagpole in the center. And these incredible restaurants and everything. Well, that's JP Morgan Chase. I mean, you know, that's what that is. Now, Mamdani is saying things like, you know, we don't want them.
Yeah, that's it. Like, it's so sad because that building is a monument to exceptionalism.
It is.
You know, that's what that is.
And you may not like him. You may have a problem with the bank or whatever, but what are you going to do without it?
Well, even that, it's like, that's so crazy. Like, that's so resentful. Like, that's nuts. Like, you know, if you're feeling that way, I presume you have a lot of debt. And it's like, do you want to have debt with the bank or do you want to have debt with not the bank? Because I guarantee you it's the bank that you want to have your debt with.
Yeah, that's true. But, you know, I think the resentment comes from watching. If I'm your age, you know, I saw 9/11 happened, whole thing changed. Then, you know, 7 years later, the banks get bailed out. Mom and dad don't get bailed out. Then COVID happens. They don't get bailed out. Home Depot gets bailed out, but mom and dad don't. Banks keep getting bigger. You can see how that plays on people.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. And listen, I understand. Obviously, I deeply understand the populist sentiment. I'm just really skeptical of the reaction to the feeling to be, let's break everything in our path, because I don't think that's the move. I don't think that's a move. And in fact, you know, getting back to the Mamdani conversation, the socialism conversation, I think that is the reaction. You know, they are the natural reaction to the feeling that you're talking about. And it's a base impulse. It's not the right reaction. That is, you know, people ask me a lot, what do you think he's looking for? Because, you know, isn't he concerned that like the rich are just going to leave? You know, like he posted this ridiculous video on Tax Day. I don't know if you saw it, of him filming himself outside Ken Griffin's house, the CEO of Citadel, and saying like, haha, like we're going to punish Ken Griffin with taxes. And it's this really antagonistic video. And Ken Griffin obviously didn't appreciate it. And Ken is in the middle of building a $6 billion project here. And people were like, isn't he concerned about Ken Griffin just pulling out and leaving and the rich just leaving? What is he going to do then? And it's like, no, yeah, that's the point. They don't like, they're hostile. They are hostile. This isn't, I don't think, very political. It's much more emotional.
Well, you know, what's amazing is in Chicago, the same thing is happening. I'm trying to remember who's the big guy he's the #1 philanthropist in Chicago. He moves to Florida.
Yeah. Well, Ken Griffin did that too in Chicago, moved to Florida. Yeah. His primary residence is in Florida.
Yeah. And so moved to Florida. And now Chicago, all the soup kitchens, you know, the homeless shelters, everything else are like, where's the donation? Why is he not giving? He's always given to his city because it's not his city anymore.
Yeah, well, exactly.
You chased him out. That's what happened.
Yeah, bullied him out. Well, it's like, exactly. Like, it's like, why do I want to fund the revolution?
Right.
I'm good. This seems scary, actually. Why do I have like a bunch of menacing millennials trying to burn my apartment down?
So what happens? What happens here?
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's like, I mean, I think about that a lot. Like, it's not like this is Cuba, you know, where you have to like build a raft to leave. Like, you can just leave. I mean, you can either move to Greenwich, Connecticut, or you can move to Palm Beach or Texas. I mean, it's really easy. And I know JP Morgan is having people clamoring to work out of, you know, their Texas offices and their Miami offices. I think that, you know, perhaps there's this will to accelerate, you know, to accelerate the revolution, to accelerate the change. And where that goes, I mean, nowhere good, because that's it. You can't control the movement of the people who need to fund the revolution. So it turns into a third world culture. You know, it turns into how, yeah, like I don't know if you've ever been to Cuba. I have, because I'm from Canada. So we were allowed to go there growing up, and I went like twice or three times. And, you know, Cuba is interesting, and I think that it's a great symbol for this movement and this ideology, because you look kind of like into buildings into a distance, and they're beautiful, and you can see that they were built with like craftsmanship, and they're old, and you know, a lot of work was put into them, and a lot of care was put into them, and then you get closer to them, and they're decaying, they're dilapidated, the paint is peeling, they're rusting. Nothing has been kept, and they're just relics of the past. They're relics of a success of the past that has been killed, and now they're just decaying in front of your face.
Thank you for thinking for yourself and being part of a movement, because that's really what all of this is. If you want the full story, you want to go deeper, go to blazetv.com.
No, you don't go to blazetv.com. You just listen to Dr. Paul Cottrell on my different channels. And by the way, make sure you subscribe to all of them. All the information is in the description of this video and every video. So before we go to the next topic of discussion, please go to my store, help support the work that I do. And better yet, if you follow my advice, you're going to improve your health and slow down the aging process. Omega-3, super important for your cardiovascular system. This will bring down inflammation and help you to control your lipid profile by bringing down LDL levels and increasing your HDL levels. And when you do that, you're reducing oxidized LDL, which produces plaque. So you're reducing plaque formation by taking omega-3, super important. Resveratrol helps with youthful gene expression, helps to soak up free radicals, and helps the health of your mitochondria so you have more ATP. This will help to get rid of cells that are in senescence, cells that just stop dividing and just sit there in the tissue, collects garbage, typically lipofuscin, and you want to get rid of those. And in tissues that can regenerate, what's going to happen is you're going to have new cells in that tissue performing better, and your organ systems will be performing better. So it's really important to take the resveratrol. Resveratrol also helps with the basal layer of your skin. It stacks really well with C60. And by improving your basal layer of your skin improves. The basal layer is where your new skin cells are produced. Olive leaf extract. Olive leaf extract brings down inflammation and also helps you to control that lipid profile. And it's dual purpose. It's going to help to boost up your immune system and help with your cardiovascular system. It's a great supplement that you should be taking every day. And this is the third pillar of my protocol, my anti-aging protocol. You stack this, it's very powerful. It's going to help to boost up your immune system, help with your cardiovascular system and brain function. Lignans brings down inflammation, soaks up free radicals, and it also helps with your immune system and endocrine system. Ashwagandha root controls the cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels. By doing that, you're boosting up your immune system and bringing down inflammation. And by controlling your glucose levels, you're also helping with that cardiovascular health. If you have high concentrations of glucose in your bloodstream, you're going to age your vascular system faster. Turmeric. Turmeric is really important. Bring down that inflammation, soak up those free radicals. So when you stack these together, the turmeric, the ashwagandha, and the lignans, it's a very powerful stack to help with your immune system, your cardiovascular system, and brain function. Because bringing down inflammation at the brain level, super important to reduce the chances of early onset of dementia and the buildup of amyloidosis. Also, when you have chronic inflammation at the vascular level in the brain, you're going to have strokes or microbleedings. So you don't want that. That's really bad. My father passed away last year from ischemic dementia. And the early signs were probably in 2018, and he had to be committed in 2021. And so, you know, he was in the nursing care for a few years. But the point here is that you can learn from what I'm saying, learn from what I've experienced, so you don't fall in the same trap. All right? Watching a family member die from dementia sucks. All right? It's terrible. So you can mitigate these problems by controlling inflammation, improving your brain health by exercise and learning new things, staying away from foods that hurt your vascular system, having a positive outlook, some spirituality or mindfulness. All these things are beneficial. Proper supplementation. So you are reducing the chances of building up amyloidosis or tau or having blood flow issues. So you can have a better life. Learn from what other people have done, positive and negatively, so you can have a better life. The best way to slow down the cost of healthcare in the United States isn't all this research in cancer. It's not all this research that's going on for making, you know, the wonder pill. It's literally looking in the mirror and saying that your health is 100% your responsibility. And when you start taking a holistic approach to it, and you are diligent on this, you will actually get healthier. Most of the diseases in the United States, the major diseases, in most cases, is self-induced. And because there's so many people doing this, it's raising the healthcare costs. But if people were healthier and didn't need to see doctors and didn't need to be on medication all the time and all this stuff, our healthcare costs would go down. So if you want to help society, everyone needs to look in the mirror and say, get healthy. If you want to help your own health, your own vitality and longevity, it's very doable. And all it takes is looking in the mirror. Now, people will try to find reasons why not to. They'll say it's my genetics or it's this or it's that. But in most cases, it's self-induced. So if you can, you know, do the 80-20 rule, you know, if you can get 80% of the population getting healthy, our costs will radically go down. But the way the system is, the big pharma system, it's profitable if they have a society that's sick. So there's no one really pushing, hey, you're responsible for your health. Why? Because most diseases in the United States are self-induced. Diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular. Now, you can take my advice or don't take my advice, but I know I'm right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Make sure you use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. All right, I want to play this interview by Romo and Bassett.
They put the plate down like it's a piece of art. They make me feel that way.
This is the garden hose nozzle my team spent 3 years building because every pressure washer on the market kept letting people down.
Maria,
45% of filers during this tax season availed themselves of at least one of those programs. So we had record refunds, and because of the modernization at the IRS, if you filed electronically, we were able to get your refund out in 21 days. So the consumer is very strong. Another aspect of the tax bill is the permanence of full expensing. So companies are coming, whether it's equipment, factory structures, they are able to write that off in a year. So we're seeing a CapEx boom. The way a CapEx boom works is you have a construction boom that then morphs into factory jobs. So that's very strong. And again, the consumer is very strong. We're in constant touch with the banks and the credit card companies, and they're saying that all quintiles of the distribution group is very strong.
And that's U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent with me yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures, lining up the reasons the economy has been so resilient despite the Iran conflict. This morning, President Trump's Project Freedom is set to begin. This is a U.S. military operation designed to guide foreign ships safely out of the Strait of Hormuz. The initiative presented as a humanitarian mission to assist neutral countries, business, and crews affected by the closure of the strait. President Trump expressed skepticism about Iran's 14-point proposal, saying he would likely reject it, arguing Iran has not paid a big enough price and refuses to stop building nuclear weapons. Joining me now is Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson, a member of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. Senator, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Let's start with Iran and your reaction to the efforts out of this administration to clear the Strait of Hormuz, which has been one of the president's main goals here throughout these last few weeks.
Morning, Maria. What is so tragic for the world and the Iranian people is that all the Iranian regime had to do to be left alone is disavow wanting to become a nuclear power, return their enriched uranium, stop having any capability of being able to enrich uranium, and leave other people alone. They'll stop sponsoring terrorism. But they refuse to do that. The fact that they refuse to do that, even after we've pretty well destroyed their capabilities, their missiles, their drones, their navy, degraded their nuclear capabilities, speaks volumes. And we need to end Iran as a threat to the region. We need to make sure that they can no longer hold the Strait of Hormuz hostage. Again, they are a menace. They are a threat. As soon as they're in the dustbin of history, the better for the world.
Yeah, and I know that the Treasury Secretary yesterday said that the U.S. is suffocating Iran, that this military operation has now moved into a economic warfare. Now, the president sent a formal letter to Congress on May 1st saying that the Iran conflict has effectively ended. That's basically what he told me in my interview with him 2 weeks ago. What did you take away from that letter from the president?
Well, I think he's correct. The kinetic military operation against Iran is pretty well ended. I don't think any president since the War Powers Act was enacted have acknowledged it as constitutional. I don't believe it is either. So, I mean, most presidents try and comply with it so that, again, Congress doesn't complain, but Congress is going to complain anyway.
Okay. All right, let's get to other business that you're working on. I know that the House narrowly approved that temporary deal on FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, before it expired last week, passing a Senate-approved 45-day extension on the Section 702. What do you want to say about this as people wonder why they have to get surveilled and get captured by 702 if, in fact, government is trying to listen and surveil to an overseas person?
I certainly understand the requirement to have something like FISA for overseas actors, for foreign terrorists and people that want to threaten America from outside a country. But I'm very sympathetic with the people who want some reforms, want our civil liberties protected. I think one of the things that's interesting here is probably the individual that's been abused by FISA more than any other American is President Trump. But being in the Oval Office, seeing the benefits of FISA, he wants a clean extension. So unfortunately, leaders in Congress from both parties have always pushed us right to the deadline. And so the reformers really never have a chance because, again, you don't want to see it expire. Hopefully this 45 days window gives the reforms a chance and leadership a chance to come together, do some reasonable reforms, protecting civil liberties, but that is implementable. That the FISA courts could act quickly enough to keep America safe. It's a difficult needle to thread, quite honestly, but hopefully we can figure it out in the next 45 days.
Meanwhile, Republicans working to fund ICE and Border Patrol for 3 years through reconciliation. Where does that stand? The president, of course, signed the bill ending the record-long shutdown at the Department of Homeland Security after the House and Senate came together on that. Most agencies funded except ICE and CBP.
Well, understand, the reason we haven't been able to fund DHS is because the Democrats don't want to do it. They want to defund ICE, they want to defund CBP. So Senate Republicans recognize that. We passed funding for about 90% of DHS, 20 of the 22 agencies. The House delayed a bit on that. From my standpoint, came to their senses, passed that. Now we need to pass a very targeted reconciliation bill that will fund ICE and CBP through fiscal year 2029. And for those, including me, that want to do more in reconciliation, do a third reconciliation. There's nothing preventing that. Let's quickly pass this skinny reconciliation, get that behind us, have DHS, CBP, ICE funded, and then listen, there's all kinds of things I'd like to do in reconciliation, including returning to a reasonable level of pre-pandemic spending, which we didn't do in the One Big Beautiful Bill.
Well, look, you're adopting this budget blueprint, launching the reconciliation process. The president is renewing his calls to terminate the filibuster. And I know you and I have talked about this a lot, but the president wrote—
I just want to interrupt here. The S&P 500 is trading at 7,235. So it's relatively stable for equities. And VIX is at 1746. But what is interesting on the telemetry chart, for the ones that are watching the live stream on my website or on YouTube, you'll notice that Bitcoin has been ticking up and it's now at 80,780. It seems like there's a decent correlation between equities moving upward and Bitcoin moving upward.
Truth Social this weekend. Republicans must terminate the filibuster and approve all of the necessary safeguards we need for elections to protect the American public during the upcoming midterm elections. Senator, it doesn't look like you have that kind of support in terms of getting rid of the filibuster. But what do you think happens after the midterms? I mean, if the House loses the majority, which is widely expected, does the president's agenda get impacted?
It takes 90 seconds for this NASA-engineered AC.
But we didn't have the votes to end the 60-vote threshold on nominations until the Democrats were so obnoxiously obstructionist. All of a sudden, we had 53 Republicans. Right now, we probably don't have the votes. The Republicans, we would like to have the ability to block. When the Democrats have the chance, they will end the filibuster. They want to turn America into a one-party nation. They'll pack the Supreme Court. They'll turn D.C., Puerto Rico into states. They will nationalize our elections, automatic registration, mail-in balloting. So we need to stop them. And the only way we can stop them is end the filibuster now, pass election integrity reforms so that only American citizens can vote and you have basic controls over the election. So again, I'm just being practical. They're going to do it. We ought to do it before that, for the benefit of the American people, to secure our borders, to secure our elections, not turn America into a one-party nation is what the Democrats would do with it.
And real quick before you go, Senator, a word on your hearing last week. We were going to get into it before you had the hearing. Can you give us an update?
Well, I recommend everybody reading my 38-page report. It's unmasked how Biden health officials purposely turned a blind eye toward COVID-19 safety signals. What happened, Maria, and this is unconscionable, this should be all over the news media. I don't think one legacy media is covering this story. The office inside FDA that's responsible for vaccines and vaccines.
Unfortunately, because of the censorship on YouTube, I can't continue with it or I'll be demonetized. But let me just put it this way. There is ample evidence that suggests that inoculations have problems, especially during the crisis that we went through recently. All right, with that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer. I have a great neurostack. All right. I've been really focused on trying to get people to think about their brain health because of what happened to my father. So please go to my store, get the Clarity Factor. It's a great neurostack. It'll allow you to concentrate. And you take it every day. What you're going to notice is that you're going to be thinking faster and you'll have better memory. And what is happening is that you're having positive neuroplasticity. You're linking up your neurons more. Your dendritic connections are improving. Those neural networks are improving. So please go to my store and get the Clarity Factor. Take it every day. Make sure you drink it with filtered water. And for individuals that are 40 years of age or older, you're not producing muscle as readily compared to when you were younger. You're atrophying, actually. You're losing muscle in most cases, for males and for females. So it's important to build muscle and to maintain muscle. Take the Myotrol. This helps with the gene expression to build muscle and maintain muscle. It also helps with the health of your mitochondria, has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help with the gene expression to build muscle. You do a little bit of resistance training a few times a week and take the Myotrol, and you'll notice that you're gaining muscle and maintaining muscle. Now, if you're an athlete, younger or older, you'll also benefit with taking Myotrol to build strength for your sport. And this stacks really well with the Gladiator Barley, which helps to build muscle. It detoxifies your body, soaks up free radicals, brings down inflammation. So Gladiator Barley and Myotrol together is a great stack for building muscle. Now, digestive enzyme complex. This will help to reduce the load on your pancreas so you don't turn into Steve Jobs. You don't want problems with your pancreas, trust me. All right. Now, what this will do is help you to break up the proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids, because this supplement has all the enzymes that you need to break up your food. It reduces stress on your pancreas and it allows you to absorb your nutrients. And also, digestive enzyme complex has bromelain in it, which will help to break up clots. So that's really important, right? To be healthy. So take the digestive enzyme complex every day. Now, I have structural nanosilver gels. You can get it in the tube form or in the quick dispenser form. Use them the same way. They're dual purpose. You can apply it on your skin daily for a topical skin care. You can put it on a cut, an abrasion, or a minor burn, and it'll help to heal it quicker, about 1/3 the time quicker. And if you're around someone that's not feeling well because of the cold season, put it on your hands. It stays active for 5.5 hours, but you can put it around your eyes, around your nose, around your ears, lightly coat your nostrils, and it'll stay active. Again, for 5.5 hours. So have some at work, have some at home. You never know when you need it. It's a great product to make sure that you mitigate and neutralize accordingly. And again, you can use it as a daily skincare. Structural nanosilver soap that I have in stock is the peppermint version. Very high quality structural nanosilver soap that helps to neutralize, helps the health of your pores of your skin. And it's a very high quality soap. Use it every day. And lastly, structural nanosilver toothpaste. It neutralizes, it whitens your teeth, freshens your breath, reduces inflammation at the gum line, improves your gum health, has no fluoride, and with good oral hygiene, you're helping your cardiovascular health and valvular health. A lot of people don't realize that. Poor oral hygiene can lead to cardiovascular problems. So please go to my store, get the structural nanosilver toothpaste. And make sure you use discount 5. I want you to save some money. And if you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift. So if you spend $100 and you use discount 5, it's a win-win situation. You're getting free stuff and you're saving money. And if you're following my advice, you're slowing down the aging process. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, let's listen into Bloomberg here.
Where protein is sort of that more generic word that everybody's using.
Right. And Tyson is kind of in a sweet spot here,
Yeah,
given that it processes chicken, pork, and beef. We know that DOJ, the Department of Justice, is investigating the meatpacking industry because of those record high beef prices. How involved is Tyson? I mean, is it a target? Is it a potential beneficiary if the government focuses more on foreign meat processors?
Yeah, the government they've specifically really called out foreign meat processors like JBS. But Tyson does have a pretty good sized beef business. At the end of the day, a lot of this sentiment coming from the government is about the whole idea of affordability. And people point to beef as prices that are have gone up and up and up and up. But there is a supply demand equation behind that accounts for why those prices are still high. And so, when it comes to collusion on price fixing or that there's something nefarious going on, I think that sometimes kind of that subject of affordability overshadows the fact that we just have a basic supply-demand equation imbalance. And that's really, as we see it, something that's not going to change for the next probably 2 or 3 years.
Why is that? Why is it going to have that supply and demand out of balance for beef?
It's that we just don't have enough cattle being raised to be processed. And we see no signs on the horizon really right now that ranchers are retaining more cows to have calves to increase the size of the herds. And that comes from a lot of different things. It comes from higher interest rates. It costs more to raise the animals. It comes from weather. You have to have pretty good weather to have the pastures that you need in order to raise those animals. And right now, there's just a lot of risk in that. And so we haven't seen the inclination to increase that number of cows of the cattle that are being raised. And until you have a better supply and demand stays high, it's just going to keep meaning high prices for the consumer.
Yeah, and we know that Tyson is trying to make some adjustments on its end, right-size its beef unit. It closed a plant in Nebraska. It cut shifts at a Texas plant. But Jennifer, how much of this is really beyond Tyson's control?
Well, they really can't control the size of the cattle herds. So I think the company has done a very, very good job of looking at what they can control, taking the actions needed, whether it's closing plants, reducing shifts, and optimizing kind of their network. And then when the cattle herd comes back, remember, it takes 18 months, for a cow to be born to get to the point where it's ready to be processed. There's plenty of notice when the herds start to rebuild that they can adjust their capacity if needed. And so right now, I think Tyson is taking all the prudent measures needed to sort of optimize what they can control.
Just grow more cows. But apparently,
if only it were that simple.
It worked for chickens. I mean, you just grow some more chickens, they lay eggs, and problem solved there. But a little bit different, as I understand it, with the cattle there. Jen Bartashis, thanks so much for joining us. Jen Bartashis covers all the retail stuff for us, as well as the food business as well. We had some news out of Norwegian Cruise Lines, which was a little strange, I think, given some of the other cruise operators and their results. But Norwegian came out with a profit drop, some tepid guidance, and stock is taking it on the chin today. Brian Egger, Bloomberg Intelligence, senior gaming lodging analyst. He also covers the cruise lines here. Talk to us about Norwegian. Is their business unique, Brian, versus some of the other companies we saw before?
Yeah, they just installed a new CEO in February. They're going through a bit of a realignment, some operational changes, some marketing changes. I think that was a big part of what's really happened here. They are guiding a 3 to 5% decline in net revenue yield for 2026. And this is the same environment where Royal Caribbean's looking for a 2% increase. So obviously a bit of a disparity. And I think a lot of this is because part of the reason one of the prior CEO had left was they've not done a great job recently in commercializing their Caribbean product, aligning all their private islands and the water parks with their new cruise ships. And I think that's part of why they've underperformed. That's also why, think about why they cut their profit guidance 13%. A third of that was from fuel costs, which is basically just the war in Iran. The other 2/3 was not from fuel costs. So presumably something is changing operationally.
Got it.
A number of operators have seen pressure in Europe because of the Middle East conflict in terms of European cruise demand. But obviously Norwegian here is seeing something worse.
So this sounds like it's a execution issue. And we also know that Norwegian is a target of activist investors. Elliott Management has built more than a 10% stake, at least according to reports back in February. So when it comes to Norwegian, the company says the war is impacting all 3 of its brands. Who are Norwegian's customers compared with other cruise operators? Or is there just overlap?
First of all, I do think that the kind of upper mid-market Norwegian Cruise Line brand has been more affected. The luxury brands like Oceania, Region 7 Seas has been more resilient. So that's something kind of disparity we've seen across the travel industry. But they've really had to work on their marketing strategy. I mean, they are taking steps to address some of the prior missteps. That is to say, they're going to reducing their SG&A costs by 15%. They're shaving about $125 million off of marketing costs. So they're trying to target their marketing much more effectively. So they are going through a series of changes under a new CEO. That being said, obviously a disappointing performance, particularly given the strength of some of those brands, to see such a significant guidance cut, even putting aside what we know about the impact of Iran on European cruises and fuel costs. This is still a disappointment.
So one analyst on Wall Street writes, and I'll quote it here, it's pretty funny, quote, "This is NCLH, that's the ticker we are dealing with here. And by now you should have learned to always expect the unexpected, AKA expect the worst." Does this company have a management credibility problem on the street?
I don't think this has always been true, but there were obviously missteps that led up to the CEO change that happened in February. Along with that, replenishment of the board, as they call it, new board members. And
I don't know. I've never been on a cruise, ship, for multiple days. I've, done a day type thing, going around islands and stuff. But it seems to me that if someone is doing a cruise for a vacation, 7-day cruise or 5-day cruise or even longer, that you're confined and they're nickeling and diming you for everything. And almost everyone that I've known that's gone on a cruise, they come back with weight gain because they're overeating. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 helps with the gene expression. It's a gene expression cofactor. It'll also help to absorb calcium. It works better when you take magnesium. And vitamin D3, when you're doing some resistance training, is going to help with building denser bone. Super important. If you're 40 years of age or older, vitamin B complex is something you should be taking every day. The first 4 B vitamins helps the health of your mitochondria. It works within the electron transport chain to build up the concentrations of ATP. Also, your cellular metabolism will improve. And your neurons will be protected by vitamin B12. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And heirloom barley. Heirloom barley helps to detoxify your body, brings down inflammation, and soaks up free radicals or superoxide dismutase. Now, taking heirloom barley every day will allow you to improve your immune system and your endocrine system. But it's also, because it's controlling the inflammation and soaking up free radicals, it's going to help with your cardiovascular health because you're reducing oxidized LDL. You're reducing the concentrations of oxidized LDL. For brain function, it's going to help because it's keeping inflammation down and soaking up those free radicals at the brain level. And for joint health, by bringing down inflammation, you're reducing problems with arthritis. So there's many benefits of taking heirloom barley. Now, I also have gladiator barley that you get all the benefits of heirloom barley, but one extra benefit in gladiator barley, and that is it'll allow you to help build muscle. It's a month's supply. Take it every day. It's a great supplement that is dual purpose. And also get the Max 35 or Cleanse. Max 35 is 35 parts per million. And Cleanse is 30 parts per million. Take a teaspoon a day, every day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, and then swallow it. What this will do is improve your oral cavity, help your mucosal lining, help the health of your epithelial cells, and boost up your innate immune system. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. In addition, if you aren't feeling well because of the cold season or you're around someone that's not feeling well, take a tablespoon. Swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, and swallow it. I've been doing this protocol for over 6 years, every day. teaspoon a day. And if I'm not feeling well, I take a tablespoon. It's really simple. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And it's the first pillar of my protocol. And that protocol is really simple. Multivitamin with a probiotic. That's the foundation. The first pillar, the Max 35 or cleanse. The second pillar, C60. The third pillar, turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans. And the fourth pillar, Boomer Boost. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer. And if you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to pivot over to Cash Jordan, because we need to understand on how New York City is literally collapsing in real time.
Here's One Love.
Nearly half the adults living in the U.S. have cardiovascular disease. For those over the age of 40,
after 2 years of growth, more people moved out of New York City than moved in 2025. That's according across all income levels. Okay, so take a look before any of this year's proposals on tax changes.
So, New York's population just shrank, but not in the way anyone expected, because it turns out people of all income levels are finding reasons to leave this place as fast as they possibly can, even if they're considered wealthy enough to afford to stay here. Because as you're about to see, affordability isn't the only thing forcing people out.
Under the cover of night, a burglar kicks in a glass door, heads straight to the register, rips it from the counter, wires and all, and leaves the way they broke in.
It was pretty shocking to us. Our margins are very, very slim, so it's really hard to survive as it is.
It's become pretty unaffordable, unfortunately. It's super expensive to get a cup of coffee, and rents are obviously pretty high here.
Too expensive. I mean, I got a decent job. I can't afford to live here. I got to come commute in every day.
Our population, after increasing, declined in 2025, but it's a combination of two things. Federal policies that squashed international immigration, which is usually the generator of growth in New York City.
They refer to people who are in this country illegally as just immigrants. And they say that they are under attack by Donald Trump's cuts.
And today he was unrepentant for his plan to exact more taxes to balance his budget, saying his intent is
balancing this budget in a manner that asks the wealthiest and the most profitable corporations to pay that little bit more so that everyone can afford to live in the city.
Wow, so before our mayor, Mamdani, took over, people were already on their way out of this place. And while this study says people of all income levels left, nobody's talking about what it was that caused the population of New York to grow in the first place. For example, it's been reported that between 2023 and 2024, New York experienced a net gain of 87,000 residents. And the reason for that is being stated as quote unquote international migration, which reveals the 250,000 plus asylum seekers who came here and got free hotel rooms back when the border was wide open benefited New York by covering up a population decline that was already happening. And since then, the border has closed, yes, but rents have skyrocketed. Crime is doing the exact same thing, at least the dangerous kinds of crimes people care about, as our revolving door justice system spins faster and faster. And with our communist mayor now threatening businesses and standing in front of the homes of the rich, accusing them of destroying the city they have no connection to with their pricey second homes, even though their companies create jobs and build things, it sure seems like New York's best days are in the rearview mirror, not in front of it, unless, of course, you're moving here for one of the mayor's new free grocery stores or free daycare centers. And that brings us to the real reason the population here is shrinking and why that's only going to happen faster. New York is now set up to benefit people who come here for the free things, but aren't people.
Okay, something just happened in the market here just now. All right, so the S&P 500 is now going down. It's at 7,200 and it's trying to break the 7,200 level. VIX is spiked up to 18.42. The reason being is it looks like UAE was hit, or was Iran was shooting a missile at the UAE. And oil now spiked up. It's trading at 105.72. Bitcoin dropped down. Now it's trading below the 80,000 mark. And the ETF that I've been telling everybody about, UCO, is now trading at 50.07. That's 3 times leverage for longing oil. Oil is trading again at 105.47. So this is escalation in the region, causing problems with the oil markets now.
Who the city might want a tax to pay for those things, which makes this a haven for lawlessness of all kinds. For example, if you're a criminal who runs a shoplifting empire on various street corners and it's your goal to pillage business after business and then sell what you steal out of suitcases, well, you're not going to have to pay taxes and you're going to get all the free stuff. You might even qualify for free health care. And just like we saw during the...
Yeah. Now Brent futures are at 114 because of the UAE being fired upon by a missile. Looks like it's from Iran.
Crisis with the luxury hotel rooms, etc., all acting as benefits. The new mayor's plans are doing the exact same thing, or at least trying to, but there's a huge problem. All the money for these free promises, it no longer exists. We've already spent it, and while the money leaves, the city itself is finding ways to lose even more of it on a daily basis. Watch this.
Experience the future of comfort, where technology meets relaxation. The Smart Living Sale is on now at...
So here you have a massive number of people entering the subway.
I'm sorry.
Of it on a daily basis. Watch this. So here you have a massive number of people entering the subway for free. Now the subway and the transit systems here together lose about $1 billion a year, which not only contributes to safety issues inside.
I see this happening every day in New York. And always it is individuals, male and female, primarily male, that are Black.
Subway, but puts a massive drain on the city's meager resources, which it wants to spend on pretty much everything. And crimes like this are the perfect visual representation of what New York has allowed itself to become. This whole place now exists as a safe haven for the lawless. They can do whatever they want here, and now we're suffering from trickle-up lawlessness.
License, registration, proof of insurance, please. Boss, just come outside. Just come outside. Give me your hands. All right, okay. All right, just comply with us, all right?
That's wild. Who told those people to go and get an arsenal and drive down the street? And who were they looking for? And what were their plans that evening if the police didn't randomly pull them over at a traffic stop? Well, this is pretty easy to figure out. We've got laws that embolden and fail to bring a consequence about for minor crime, which means after criminals get practice doing one thing, they get sick of it and want to graduate and do something worse, climbing the criminal corporate ladder, so to speak, which now has the law-abiding scratching their heads, wondering what they're still doing here.
Why do you think people are leaving the city?
It's become pretty unaffordable, unfortunately. It's super expensive to get a cup of coffee, and rents are obviously pretty high here.
Do you live in the city?
No, I live outside the city for just that reason.
It's too expensive. I mean, I got a decent job. I can't afford to live here. I got to come commute in every day.
Every single one of them is right. Nobody can argue with the fact that everything here costs way more than it should, and it certainly isn't the president's fault. I mean, we had $10 milk in some of our grocery stores before he was in office. That's not because of inflation that didn't exist yet. Oh no, crime here is so bad. If a store has 100% of its items and half of it gets stolen, the other half has to cost twice as much, or that place closes. But here's the kicker: if everything folks are complaining about is completely true, and you stack rampant, increasing crime and lawlessness on top of an affordability crisis, and you refuse to take any measures to curb it. You're not just going to force people out financially, you're going to physically throw them out the door, which some people think is happening on purpose.
The mayor of New York getting pushback from billionaire Ken Griffin and his company called Citadel. Griffin threatening to not go forward with his planned project in Midtown Manhattan. That would create, he says, 15,000 permanent jobs.
Wow. This all started when Mayor Mamdani made a social media video pushing for his and the governor's pied-à-terre tax, and doing it right in front of Griffin's apartment on Central Park South. Griffin bought it for $230 million back in 2019, even though he's not technically a New York City resident.
Oh, politics in New York City.
Ah, interesting. So it looks like the mayor may have walked into a trap that he set for himself by filming this recent video, which went viral, where he singled out one particular individual for owning a property that they paid a lot of money for. Here you've got this luxury penthouse owned by one of the richest people in the world, which certainly makes him an easy target for the communists who want to tax people like this. But the problem is, well, the mayor and his team looked at this penthouse and said this person needs to be punished. They didn't consider all the jobs this person and their company creates right here in New York, and how they're about to spend billions.
This is exactly what Ayn Rand wrote in Atlas Shrugged, where you have a socialist politic demonizing the capitalists and creating laws, taking property, overtaxing, and eventually what happens is the society starts to crumble. When Atlas decides to not hold up the world, when the capitalists decide to not hold up the world, what do you think is going to happen? The society starts to crumble. It's literally playing out. The whole plot of Atlas Shrugged is playing out in New York City right now in real time.
Dollars on the city, which now might not happen if their future here is going to be under attack. But here's what the mayor said when asked if he regrets this.
Mayor Mamdani was making no apologies today. Asked if he regrets the video, his answer was...
Turns out the government tracks a lot of data. Just the facts from USA Facts.
Was simple.
That home, when it was purchased, was the most expensive home in the United States of America.
Last week, the mayor stood outside 220 Central Park South.
Today, we're taxing you.
It is shameful that he used Ken's name as the example of those who supposedly aren't carrying their fair share. Griffin and the staff paid $2.3 billion in city and state taxes, he said, and Griffin himself directed $650 million in charitable gifts to city institutions.
Wow, so this guy's bleeding money for New York City, but he's not paying his fair share somehow, and he deserves to be punished just a little bit more so that everyone can live here. What a wild statement. Now, look, could he afford a little bit more? Sure, he's one of the richest people on the planet, but that's not the point. The point is we're at a spot in New York where we're now singling people out and attacking them for their accomplishments when they employ New Yorkers and create good jobs, high-paying jobs, and pay billions of dollars in taxes, which the city needs to fund all the free stuff. And we're supposed to think that these people need to be punished because they were successful enough to own a second home that nobody lives in. I mean, that is just such a ridiculous argument because this guy's paying so much money every month. You want him to own one or two apartments that keep him here and keep him spending his money. And now that this entire company's been insulted and their CEO is under attack, they're threatening to cancel a massive construction project. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. What about all the billions this guy has in charitable contributions that go to New York, and even some of which goes to the city itself? Where's all that money going to go? Let's hear from Bill Ackman. Look at this. He says non-residents, like this gentleman, this CEO who has a second home in New York and actually lives in Florida. This guy spends a ton of money on New York, but he actually receives nothing from New York. He doesn't benefit from protection from the local police. He doesn't take the subway, which is subsidized by the government. He's not going to go to the free grocery stores. He just puts money in and asks for nothing in return because he's not here. So, like, that's the best kind of person you could possibly have living in your city as somebody who pays for it and actually does it. New York needs as many people like that as possible because it wants to have massive amounts of everybody's money to pay for the people that are here.
That their planned 1,600-foot tower on Park Avenue will create over 20,000 mostly permanent jobs. Then adding, the project, if we move forward, will entail more than $6 billion of spending. If Griffin is reconsidering, Mamdani seems unconcerned.
I am intent, however, on balancing this budget in a manner that asks the wealthiest and the most profitable corporations to pay that little bit more so that everyone can afford to live in the city.
But the city doesn't want to spend a little bit less to balance the budget so that the exact same thing can happen, as if spending money means everyone can live here. What about the people that have to pay more money so that everyone can live here? How are they going to be able to stay if we keep hitting them for more and more? I mean, it's so obvious why New York City has a population exodus problem that was happening before the mayor even came in, by the way. We've been losing people, and now the mayor says he's going to raise taxes to make it so even more people have to leave. And now the question is, who is this everyone he keeps talking about? Remember, New York is a sanctuary city. And although the local leaders here love to talk about how we are the
bottom line is this. New York spent way too much money supporting illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants, not legal, illegal. And because of that, now they have a problem. They spent money they didn't have, and now they're asking everyone else here legally to pay a little bit more. This is the problem with the socialists. This is the problem with these democratic socialists, these communists like Mamdani. And we're moving close to the anniversary of 9/11. And we're going to have this Muslim mayor that wants to destroy capitalism. I mean, you couldn't write a better novel than what's literally happening in real time in New York. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And it's so sad that you had so many people buying into this socialistic lie.
Of immigrants, which is true, they're lumping in people who have immigrated to America legally with people who've come here illegally. And it is estimated that there are a lot of people in New York who fit that category. And when you say everyone and you're a sanctuary city that believes in a wide open border, what you're actually saying is that we want to tax the rich to pay for a potentially unlimited number of people to come here and stay here forever. It's pretty wild.
It is hilarious to hear the different vocabulary that they use for non-New Yorkers compared to how they talk about illegal immigrants. So throughout Zoran and the socialist proposal, they refer to people who are in this country illegally as just immigrants. And they say that they are under attack by Donald Trump's cuts. And so he emphasizes the importance of giving immigrants health care and SNAP benefits and child care as well.
Well, that's one way to make sure that everybody can stay here is to just pay for the stuff that everybody needs. But the problem is you're offering what everyone needs to an unlimited number of people, and you have a finite number of people who are able to pay the bills for this. And those are the people who are on their way out. And what's fascinating is these recent population reports, well, they say it's people across all income brackets. So it's not that the rich who already pay most of the taxes here are having a problem with everything. No, it's everybody. You've got average people that are getting hit hard too. New York's got some of the highest taxes in the entire country. And when you're trying to pay some of the highest rents in the entire country, it certainly doesn't help when the government does everything it can to stop you from paying your bills every month.
Everyone can afford to live in the city. And that means Ken Griffin, and that means so many others across the city. And that also means those who would love to join us in the city.
Mamdani believes he won a mandate, destined perhaps to clash with the city's billionaires.
That's true.
They will do everything they can to prevent their grip from weakening.
Some in the business community tonight are urging caution.
It's the most carefree that I've ever been in 87 years.
The gold days of Grubhub Plus are upon us, but with great deals come gold diggers.
That's a big bag, Gary.
Gary.
It's a big ecosystem here.
And by villainizing the wealthier people that are providing a lot of the jobs for the middle class, ultimately you get a smaller pool of jobs for the middle class, and then who wins in that environment?
But you see, the thing is, and this is the trap that the mayor may have inadvertently set for himself. He came in on a mandate to tax the rich. That's what his voters want. If he doesn't do that, what was the point of voting for him? You see, that's a big problem. At the exact same time, if he goes and does that, there are going to be people who leave. Now, I know the mayor doesn't think that people are going to leave. He said many, many times that when he was in the state assembly, taxes went up, and now we got more millionaires, which must mean that the more you punish millionaires, the more of them you create. But we know that's not true. People's wealth increases not because they are taxed. It's because things change, things get invented. The stock market goes up, companies start, there are technological innovations. People are becoming millionaires in New York in spite of New York trying to stop them. But now, with the mayor coming in and singling people out, it looks like that might stop happening.
Even the threat of losing a $6 billion economic development project will not make Mayor Mamdani apologize for making hedge fund owner Ken Griffin the poster boy for his tax the rich proposals. Political reporter Marcia Kramer reports the mayor is standing firm.
Sarah Mamdani's beef with rich people goes back to his mayoral campaign when he walked along Central Park South, which happens to be where hedge fund owner Ken Griffin owns a $238 million apartment.
Right. So if you're going to personalize something like this and go after specific individuals, that's going to scare people. That's going to frighten people. And that's going to tell those folks that they're not safe. And it's going to tell people like them that if they come here, they could be the next target. You see, that's a huge problem. And this company's going to spend all of this money on New York City. They're going to create all of these jobs, but they're the enemy somehow, which makes perfect sense. I mean, what communist regime on the planet has ever put its foot down and said, yes, we love it when private companies create jobs and pay people so that we don't have to support those people financially? What communist regime has ever succeeded when there's a private apparatus out there that does what they're claiming to do, only way better, and doesn't run out of people's money because it helps people generate their own money? Capitalism and communism just history works when it comes to communism, and now we're getting it right here in New York. Yet the mayor's completely trapped. If he goes full on with this, communism's not going to work. People are going to leave, and now there's going to be less jobs, and we're going to run out of other people's money faster, and even less people will be able to stay here, which is the opposite of what he is claiming he's gotten elected to do and plans to do. This is shaping up to be a massive I told you so moment, and I don't think the city is going to do anything to avert this disaster.
Citadel officials furious about a Mamdani video.
This penthouse.
Yeah.
Which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million. This peer-to-tear tax is specifically designed for the richest of the rich.
It is shameful that he used Ken's name as the example of those who supposedly aren't carrying their fair share of the burdens associated with New York City's often costly and wasteful spending.
Right.
Citadel Chief
Wasteful
Operating
spending.
Officer Gerald Beeson said in an email to company employees. City budget experts say it's short-sighted not to take into consideration the economic benefits that companies like Citadel bring to the city.
Unless you hate those companies, unless those companies are the enemy of your collectivist economic system and agenda, if you hate private businesses, if you hate private property, this is all wrong. To you, the capitalists, all they do is create inequality, when the truth is in America, we've got equality, we've got equal rights. Everybody can vote. We don't have equal outcomes because an equal outcome would mean that everybody made the same decisions and everybody did the same things and pursued the same paths. Some people studied hard, got good grades, got a job. Other people lived a life of crime. Outcomes are not always the same. Yet now New York wants to take matters into its own hands and chop everybody down to size so that everybody can live here. And I don't know what the city's going to look like in a few months. What do you think? I'll see you in the next video.
Everybody!
New York is going to be declining, and New York is the heartbeat of capitalism in the United States. And if that heartbeat starts to become diseased, then the perfusion of capitalism throughout the country will diminish. And this is the reason why they orchestrated to hit New York with socialism. You hit the Hollywood scene and the media that controls culture, right? The media that controls culture, like movies, TV shows, if you infiltrate that scene with socialism, you'll be able to slowly erode the society and start becoming more receptive to socialism. And then you hit the heart of capitalism, which is in the East Coast, right? In the United States through New York. And all of a sudden it starts to implode. They did this on purpose. There's no doubt in my mind that these communists did this on purpose, right? So the question is, are conservatives going to push back? You know, you have Michael Knowles that's pushing back. You know, there's some individuals out there that are pushing back, but there's not enough of them out there. And unfortunately, in higher society, in these private clubs, in the educated elite, they seem to gravitate, unfortunately, to these socialistic programs. It's this suicidal empathy that Professor Gadd mentioned. But it's also this concept that Nietzsche had in his philosophy. And I'm broad brushing this, so take it with a grain of salt. But what Nietzsche stated was this: there are these slave moralities that are manifested because of this empathy, a society that has too much empathy through religion. And he was focusing on the Christian faith, the Catholic faith, but the Christian religion having too much empathy and then turning into a slave. Now, in modern context, this is the suicidal empathy that Gadd is mentioning here. So this whole America First pacifism is an element of the slave morality that Nietzsche's talking about, or the suicidal empathy that Gadd's talking about. You have to kill your enemy. Now, in the case of what's happening in Iran, the theocratic regime needs to be destroyed. The IRGC needs to be destroyed. Now, unfortunately, Trump is slow walking this to the point where it's going to hurt the global economy, and not just the global economy, the American economy. But he can't do it faster because we can't make the munitions fast enough. It's bottlenecked. It takes too long to make the weapons, these smart bombs, these smart missiles, and it's too costly. The way our Pentagon actually created the war machine was with the assumption that the war would be over, or our conflicts would be very short-lived. So they spent very high dollars for low quantity. It takes more than a year to make 100 Tomahawk missiles. That's crazy. This is the reason why Pete Hegseth had to purge so many generals out of the Pentagon, because they spent too much money on armaments with not high enough quantity, and to build up the supply chain that if we needed to have a sustained war, that we would have the supply chain for it. Now, you look at Lockheed and some of these other defense contractors, defense companies that are making these weapons, they don't want to have inventory because that hurts their balance sheet. That hurts their operations, their return on investment. They don't want to increase line production because they need to invest in their company. So the way the Pentagon worked with these generals is that they said it was okay to have very high cost weaponry with low ability to make new weapons. You can only make 79 or 80 Tomahawk missiles a year with the current production capacity. Yet we blew through that in one day. Crazy, absolutely crazy. Anyone that set up that supply chain, anyone that approved that missile defense system should be fired, because you have to have capacity. Now, of course, the United States have bought a lot of this and have it in storage, but we're running out. We don't have a buffer for a two-front war. And that's the big reason why we're in a ceasefire and that Trump isn't hitting Iran. Now, so you have also many pieces to these weapons, many parts and many part suppliers. Lockheed doesn't want to carry inventory, not just of the full weapon system before they sell it to the US. What they want is, you give us a contract and we'll notify our suppliers to make new parts. The part suppliers aren't going to carry an inventory. So it delays from the moment the contract is signed for replacement. It takes years to get the full lot for Tomahawk missile. Years, not months, years. So what they really need to do is force the manufacturers to build additional lines. Force the manufacturers to have a certain stock on hand for any emergency, and to have parts in stock for emergency build-out at the manufacturer, at the assembly. Now, the part suppliers, they need to force them to hold stock of the parts so they don't have to boot up the tools to produce new parts. See, they've created a just-in-time situation. So the lessons learned from COVID, because of JIT, just-in-time delivery, for the supply chain, they don't have redundancies. And now we have this protracted war in Iran. And because we don't have redundancies in the supply chain for our Tomahawk missiles and the other missiles, the THAAD system, the Patriot system, and all these other missile systems that we're depleting, it's all just-in-time delivery. We don't have redundancy. We don't have spared capacity. We don't have a build-up. And these defense contractors are pushing back. So this is a major reason why Hegseth said, you know what, generals? You screwed up. We need our manufacturing base to produce more faster. Well, we can't do that. Well, the thing is that if we lose the war, if we lose the situation in the Middle East, if we definitely lose the situation in the Pacific against the Chinese, we won't have a Lockheed Martin. It's gone. Our lifestyle is gone. We have to win, or this whole setup that we have, that we call America, the United States, and the exceptionalism will be gone. The prosperous country that we were born into, gone. So Lockheed needs to see that this is an existential threat. In addition, Hegseth is going to the manufacturers and for the automakers like Ford and GM and saying, can you help us out? We got this Tomahawk missile. It's got X amount of parts. I don't know how many, maybe 100, 200,000, whatever. Well, let's say 1,000 parts. I have no idea. But let's say 1,000 parts, and we need to make it fast. Figure it out. What do you need? And we need to be able to make a Tomahawk missile every 90 seconds. Every 90 seconds. And it can be done. It can be done. There is no doubt in my mind that Detroit can do this. I have lots of experience in manufacturing and automotive, and I also have lots of experience in finance and in medical research. But New York needs to understand that the solution to the problems that we have in the world, with checking the hegemonic power of the Chinese and winning in the Middle East, the solution is Detroit. We can make, there is no doubt, making a Tomahawk missile every 90 seconds. All it is the will. But what they did over the many decades is Lockheed Martin and other companies out there that are part of the defense contractors, they wanted to sell an expensive system with a low production. Because if it was a higher production, they would have to put more investment in their manufacturing facility, and they would have to charge less because the piece price, the cost per missile would go down. So we'll get benefits from aligning with the automakers. We'll get more missiles quicker, and each missile will cost less. So our generals and our defense contractors sold the United States taxpayer down the river. And this is why it is so important to purge all these generals that were part of this setup, because they failed. They failed. It is totally unacceptable to have a manufacturing capability that you can only make 79 Tomahawk missiles a year. That's great. What they did was they created our whole defense system is based on low production, not high production. We won World War II because of high production. That's how you win wars. And this is why I keep on saying, people are saying the end of InfoWars and all this. No war is won on info. It's all about kinetic. It's about how many munitions do you have and how violent can you use it. It's all about kinetic war. It's not info war. This is info war bullshit. It's about killing your enemy. So we need to reboot, our inner Machiavellian ethos. We need to reboot our inner Julius Caesar. We need to march into Gaul and chop off the head of our enemy, put it on a stake, and march back. There's nothing wrong with that. No, but we have generals that literally failed the American taxpayer. All right, before I do the next video, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the collagen. This will help with your skin, your hair, and your nails, your musculature, your bone density, and your joints. And you can stack this with the collagen. This is a month's supply. Take it every day to improve your skin and your other systems that I just mentioned. Now, collagen, you take every day. And what this does, you take it if you have a sports injury, one of your joints have a sports injury, or if you have arthritis. Now, what this does is it will help to remodel the cartilage, remodel the cushioning of the joint, block inflammation, and block the erosion of the joint. Because once you cause a injury of the joint, or you have arthritis in the joint, over time it'll erode. But if you can block that inflammation and you block the enzymes that are eroding your joint, then you're going to give time for your body to heal the joint. The earlier, the better. The earlier that you start doing this, the better. So if you have a sports injury or arthritis, take the collagen every day and then stack it with the collagen. And this will give you the amino acids that you need to rebuild that cartilage. All right. So please go to my store, get the collagen. It is a very high quality product to be able to target some of these problems that people have with joints. And also for temporary relief, if you have muscle pain, joint pain, sprain, bruising, or even a tension headache, get the Super Strong Relief. This is a new product on my store. This is a topical. You just rub it in the area where the pain is. And you'll get relief from that pain within 90 seconds. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Super Strong Relief. And lastly, Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost is the last pillar of my anti-aging protocol. This is dual purpose. It's going to help to boost up your energy levels. You'll have a steady burn of energy throughout the whole day, no crashing, no spiking of energy. It's a steady burn throughout the whole day. You'll have more vitality. This will also help with musculature, improve brain function, help with cardiovascular health, and slow down the aging process. It'll help to soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation, help the immune system and endocrine system. It's a very powerful supplement that you should be taking every day. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Make sure you use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. But people need to switch back to Hegseth. Hegseth is doing the right thing and purging the generals that failed the American taxpayer, because there is no reason whatsoever when we have these smart systems costing so much money that we can't make 1,000 a year. In most of the systems, you can't even make 100 a year. That's crazy. That's crazy. We can make systems in manufacturing that can make a Tomahawk missile every 90 seconds. If we have the will, every 90 seconds. No, but if that happens, then you're talking about, instead of spending $3 million, you're only spending $20,000. And Lockheed, this is the reason why Lockheed didn't want to do it, because they wanted to keep the piece price really high. So they didn't have to invest in, keep the piece price really high and keep the orders from the Pentagon really low. So they didn't have to invest in a more involved manufacturing process. It's like they're making these things like almost as if they're like prototypes. They're not mass producing these things. It's sad. It's sad. And then on top of the erosion of the manufacturing base, going all the way back to when NAFTA was implemented in the late 90s, it's a big problem. But you got all those generals having those medals, didn't win a war, destroyed our manufacturing base, wasn't smart enough to realize that, you know, we need a throughput that can build thousands of Tomahawk missiles in a month, not 79 in a year. I mean, what dipshit would allow that to even happen? Oh, they're a general that didn't win a war, but has lots of medals and failed. They failed forward. Those generals, many of them, not all of them, but many of them that are in the Pentagon are failed forward individuals. All right. Let's play Bloomberg for right now here.
Then the numbers are going to get real interesting here. And again, there's a lot of volatility in the marketplace, but the fact is the market has shrugged off kind of their concern there. And again, when I was pitching these things back in the day, you know, not just the where the market is today, but where the VIX is today.
Yeah.
And the VIX is now below 20. That was kind of always a little signal for us to get on the phones and start talking to the clients and see about what they want to do here. And that's kind of where we are.
And the fact that earnings have come in pretty solid so far is also another indication that these companies can move forward with plans to list and feel like, the environment is correct, the environment is appropriate.
Yep, absolutely. And it's interesting when you see that that SpaceX deal come along, that's going to be a beast unto itself. It's it's going to be a call on Elon Musk.
Yep.
It's going to be a call just on space and all the opportunities there.
And investors might need to make room in their portfolios for SpaceX because you've got the index compilers moving quickly to maybe bend the rules or adjust the rules to get a company like SpaceX into its indexes earlier so that the ETFs that track those indexes can then buy the stock too.
Absolutely. All right, one of the most read stories on the Bloomberg terminal today impacts some of these FedEx, UPS, and some of these shipping companies. U.S. transportation stocks plunged Monday after Amazon.com announced expanded logistics offering. Amazon will offer freight, distribution, and fulfillment and parcel shipping to businesses beyond Amazon sellers, including companies such as 3M and Land's End. Wow, that's a change. Lee Klaskow, he covers all the logistics companies here, including the FedExes and the UPSs of the world. This seems like a big announcement, Lee. Put it into context for us.
Yeah, actually, it's pretty interesting, the market reaction. Amazon has been kind of doing this quietly. A lot of the services that they announced that they're going to be offering for quite some time, for 2 or 3 years now. I guess they're, making an official push that they're trying to get broader or cast a wider net in terms of customers that they can reach. We would say for the freight transportation world, the sky really isn't falling. Yes, Amazon will be a competitor, but we expect that the things that they're going to go after might not be the high margin businesses that the FedExes and the UPSs of the world were going after. And it's going to be felt by, freight forwarders, such as companies like Expeditors or DSV, and also folks in the warehousing and distribution business like a GXO.
Yeah, but Amazon doesn't just stop there, right? I mean, it may start there and then eventually it's going to continue building out this logistics business. How long do we think that'll take?
Yeah, so they're already offering these services, and what they tend to do is they go into a market because they want to reduce their costs to serve, their cost to do their core competency, their main businesses, which obviously is the Amazon.com business. So what they're trying to do is really take the excess capacity, the expertise that they have, that they built doing things in-house, and kind of be able to lower the average cost. How long will it take? I mean, it really depends on what they're going after. We don't think they're like a huge threat to the less than truckload market. We think that, for commoditized freight, yes, they can make inroads into the brokerage and freight forwarding businesses. But, those businesses, it's not just about executing, right? It's about relationships. It's about being able to provide consistency and quality over time. And Amazon has to earn some of that business as well. Just because they're in the business doesn't mean people are going to go to them.
So how does this strategy differ from what they have been doing here? Because it seems like you do see them, the trucks everywhere. So how has this changed?
Yeah, so a lot of things that they do for other shippers, it's really kind of on a non-asset basis. So those trucks you're seeing, they might own the trailers, but they don't own the truck. The truck is an independent contractor that maybe their brokerage business secured. So, or maybe they did it through somebody else. So they're going to continue to do that sort of stuff where they're going to say, to a 3M. 3M might have a load to go somewhere, and they could broker that load for them, or they might, store some of their stuff in their warehouses and try to get it to their other distribution warehouses, or maybe to the final mile, if you will. So, they are definitely going to be incrementally encroaching on these transportation logistic businesses. But like I mentioned earlier, they've been kind of doing this for 2 and 3 years, and we expect them to continue to build those businesses. Mm-hmm. But I don't expect to wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden, FedEx and UPS are at a disadvantage, because those companies are going after higher margin business. They realize that the B2C business, while it's a growing business, is really a low margin business, right? And they'd rather grow their B2B. They'd rather grow into higher margin verticals like healthcare, and they're really focusing on the small to mid-sized customers. And that's probably where Amazon's going to compete with them the most.
So, Lee, given all of that, and thank you for just kind of talking down people who might be panicking. you're looking at FedEx down 9%. You're looking at UPS down almost 10%. Is that just an overreaction?
I mean, I would say so. You know, these names have had somewhat of a decent run as of late. Maybe UPS, or I should say, maybe FedEx more than UPS. But you know, I think it's just, yeah, it's really kind of a bit of an overreaction, because fundamentally, FedEx and UPS are no different than they were yesterday.
All right, Lee, it just seems like anytime, you know, Amazon comes into any market, people, you know, freak out given their size. Lee Klaskow, he covers all the transportation and logistics.
Well, thank you for listening. This is the end of the broadcast for today. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer. And if you want to help support the show, you can also donate on my website through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee. You can also be a paid member to my Patreon channel. So please help support the free content that I provide. And thank you for listening. I greatly appreciate it. Have a nice day.